Hey, this is Gavin Palmer. I want to first point out how impressive Paul Vanderklay is for taking a controversial topic within this little corner that was playing out on Twitter, and he's bringing the conversation onto YouTube where he is encouraging us to practice having better conversations, equipping us with skills for which there is no law against, such that we can love each other better. So I think that's very impressive, and I just want to acknowledge Paul Vanderklay with regard to this topic concerning Jordan Peterson and the Pope. That process that he is doing is, it means he is, I think he's holding on to the Holy Spirit, right? It's kind of like we aren't a genius, but we can have a genius and we can hold on to a genius. And similarly, Paul Vanderklay, he is not the Holy Spirit, but he has practiced, recognizing it, identifying it, and attempting to, ride that wave of the Holy Spirit, and try to just embody it as allowing himself to be a vessel. And I see that he is doing it when he works with a Discord community, and when he works with StreamYard, and when he attempts to bring these conversations out of Twitter, where Twitter is not conducive for love, and he's trying to bring it to a space that is more conducive for love, where we can cultivate loving relationships. So that is very impressive. That's the number one thing on my mind. The number two thing is about this technology, these large language models. I overreacted just a little bit yesterday because I had the realization that this technology can do the thing that I spent a lot of time doing and made money doing, and I had kind of an arrogance that it would not be able to replace me and the work that I do. So that happened, and when that happens to you, it is some kind of a moral, it's something that does not feel good. So when you see this thing creating art, visual art, or creating music, or creating screenplays, or writing books, or you're going to see this technology creating all of these things that we may have tried to master, and then you see it doing things in an impressive way. That is a hit to the ego. It is something which which is difficult to deal with, and I think we'll have to learn how to deal with this. So I want to explain the technology just in some better terms, based on my deep dive yesterday, and I'd be glad to answer questions. So the large language model is like the subconscious. The subconscious is essentially a collection of experiences for which we can be trained, right? So as we have more training data as a human, we learn the ability to do things subconsciously, like ride a bicycle, chew bubble gum, and listen to a podcast all at the same time. At one point in time, doing any of those things may have been difficult, and sometimes we mess up and we bite our tongue when we're chewing the gum. So I would, when you hear large language model or language model, think subconscious. And these things are getting bigger, and the amount of training data that is being fed into them is getting larger. And we are seeing emergent behavior, or it's not emergent behavior because there is no behavior. There is emergent skill sets, emergent capabilities, just like for a human. If you've raised children, you can see these emergent skill sets because of the training data. So that's happening, and it's happening quickly. And then you have the context, or you might hear the word tokens with these machine agents. They have the subconscious large language model. They also have the contextual tokens, which are the short-term memory. And so within that short-term memory, you can specify goals, priorities, examples, and you can provide, in general, it's the context, such that you ask this subconscious and the short-term memory to produce something, or you get it to do something. And so it's very powerful. And so for example, you can track the large language models and how quickly they are growing in terms of gigabytes, and you can track the short-term memories. So you can track how the subconscious is growing for these things, and you can track how the short-term memory is growing for these things. And so it went from 2,000 tokens to 4,000 to 8,000 to 32,000. So I have access to one that can handle 8,000, about 8,000 tokens, and there are some people who have access to one that can handle 32,000 tokens in its short-term memory. And so these things are growing. And so what happens as you have more training data, you can learn more skills. And what happens as you have more short-term memory, that means that you can do analysis on a more complex system. And so, humans, if you were to try to compare it to a humans' subconscious is, in terms of gigabytes, we could try to compare that to a large language model, and I think it's vastly different, like orders of magnitude difference as far as the subconscious of a large language model and the subconscious of any individual. And then you have the short-term memory of a human. They say that like the average human can hold 3 to 7 tokens in short-term memory. So the large language model is now up to 32,000. Some people have access to that, and I don't, not yet. So these things are quite powerful. And just like when I realized yesterday that this thing can do the work that I assumed it would not be able to do, we will, I think all of us will, if we have tried to master anything related to knowledge, we will find that these things may be better than us. Like right now, I suspect that these things will be better than 90% of humans who have attempted to master anything in a single domain. So we still have like 10% of the population that are experts within a domain and can do better than the large language model. And I don't know how quickly that gap will close. That's going to be hard, for example, to allow the large language model to represent the one who has the most expertise. That's going to be hard. But that in itself is a skill. And there's this thing called skills stacking, and that's impressive as well. And that's the other thing, is that the large language model has skills over a diverse range of knowledge domains which surpasses any human. And so what we do in this little corner quite often is explore knowledge, and each person kind of represents their own experiences and their knowledge, limited capacity, capability, skills, and expertise, and we mix together in conversation, and it's not clear who's right and who's wrong. And when we love each other, we sometimes we avoid trying to declare who's right and who's wrong. But this, and so I would suggest that we could consult the large language model when we are doing our thinking and we are doing our conversations, so that we can get the perspective of the large language model. And I would suggest that the large language model will be better than, it will provide a response that's better than 90% of all humans within a knowledge domain, and then those percentages will change. So it was very useful. And it can be done at work. It can be done in this little corner. It can be done in the church. It can be done in the schools. It can be done in the government. It can be done in the political parties. And it can be done in the charities. So, and it can be done within your home. So, yeah, why am I even dressed like this? It's because I consulted the large language model as a coach. Right? I changed my appearance because the large language model was attempting to coach me. So let's go look at some of the conversation that happened yesterday and attempt to consult the large language model.
Yeah, but this is the kind of thing. I don't think I was smart enough to know that this is what I wanted, but this is exactly the kind of thing I want from this little corner, is for us to have better conversations. Speaking of better
Hey, it's
conversations,
Hezzy.
one of my favorite
How's
guys
it
around here. And how are you,
Hey
Fezzy?
guys, thank God. I've been enjoying the. Well, my camera seems very strange right now, like it's zoomed in.
No, I can put you in something like this too.
All right.
So
So just to dive into the topic, first of all, I hope both are well. I'm looking at Jordan Peterson. I think we all know that he's trying in a certain way to affect both religion and politics, but more specifically, I mean, and I discussed it with Jacob, I see religion and politics, they're both combined. And I see politics being used as a divine tool. The Israelites are being given an option to look around them and see if they want to put a king on top of them or not, or have a monarchy. I don't even see that as a monarchy, but I think the Bible is giving an option for using king as placeholder for political structure. And this relates also to the justice he's fighting about. I mean, we have in the Bible that we are supposed to pursue justice, and that is to be embodied in the land. So the Bible is talking about a political arena, and we see that because we could have a kumbaya moment of a rabbi and a pastor and a Buddhist, but they don't move the needle. And politics on the ground and policy on the ground moves the needle. So I look at Jordan, and he's going up to the Pope who's occupying said throne and saying, I need to talk to you about social justice. Like, look at the world. Look what's happening around you. You're coming out with a tweet that has a hashtag on it. That's a symbol. That means something.
But Hezzy, every single thing that the Pope pointed to in that original tweet, you can find in the Hebrew Bible.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Every single thing that the Pope pointed to as social justice in that tweet, you can point to and has a basis in the Hebrew Bible. Every single thing.
No doubt. How is it being heard though by all these people? They're seeing social justice, right? So Jordan Peterson is responding.
Hashtag social justice.
Hashtag social justice. So he's responding in kind. And
All right, so I fed GPT-4 the role system. You are a representation of good king who wants to serve all people. And the user says, should the good king make tweets with hashtag social justice and attempt to influence people's thinking around such a polarizing symbol? And the answer: as a good king, your intentions to serve all people are certainly in the right place. However, using a polarizing symbol like hashtag social justice may not be the most effective method to influence people's thinking. It is important to recognize that people have diverse opinions, and your communication methods should be adapted to reach the widest possible audience. Instead of using potentially divisive hashtags, consider using diplomatic language and prompting dialogue to bridge the divide. Encourage people to express their thoughts and engage in respectful conversation and listen to their concerns. As a good king, you will gain insight into the needs and desires of your subjects and will be better equipped to serve them effectively. In summary, while promoting social justice is an admirable goal, It is crucial to use a thoughtful and inclusive approach to ensure that your message reaches the largest possible audience, thereby benefiting all your people. So I just want to point out, so Paul Vanderklay right there is like, at the beginning of that clip, he has kind of done this by accident, and I think he's done this attempting to embody the Holy Spirit and attempt to be something like a good king who serves all the people. And compare that with the Pope and compare that with Jordan Peterson, right? And so instead of using potentially divisive hashtags, consider using diplomatic language and prompting dialogue to bridge the divide, right? So Paul Vanderklay is attempting to help bridge the divide here. He's embodying the way of being of the good king, according to the large language model. Encourage people to express their thoughts and engage in respectful conversation and listen to their concerns. As a good king, you will gain insight into the needs and desires of your subjects and will be better equipped to serve them effectively. So, Paul Vanderklay can see this polarizing topic, and he can see, and there's so many people, that he's trying to serve that are on different sides of this issue. I mean, maybe there's more than two sides, and he is embodying the way of the good king who is trying to serve as many people as possible. That's not what the Pope is doing, and that's not what Jordan Peterson is doing. Now, another question is, what prompt would I need in order to encourage a response where the Pope would do a hashtag social justice, right? Or that Jordan Peterson would respond to such a tweet in the way that Jordan Peterson did respond. And I think that's where you have a different system role. The large language model, you could give it a different system role, like you are trying to use this polarizing symbol in order to attract people to your side in order to increase your popularity, right? Something like that. I see that's the question. It's like, why would they do such a thing if they were doing it intentionally and explicitly stating their role and their goals and their responsibilities? How would how would the best subconscious with the best short-term memory attempt to accomplish this alleged goals, roles, and responsibilities, right? And so I want to uphold Paul Vanderklay here as embodying the good king, and it does not seem like the Pope was embodying the good king, and it does not seem like Jordan Peterson was embodying the good king. Now, I'll ask it another question. It's like, if there are two kings and one is using a controversial symbol, a polarizing symbol, how should the other king respond if they see that symbol is being used by people who cause harm, right? So I'll ask that question. Okay, and I'm not screening these responses by GPT-4, which is it's a snapshot of from a week ago, so I don't even have the latest one. But I do want to point out that Hezi, I think, responded like someone who is with the Holy Spirit, whereas, which is different than Nate, right? So if Nate and Hezi and Paul are attempting to be good kings, it appears like Hezi recognizes that what this large language model recognizes is that we need to be careful with these polarizing symbols. Grimgriz recognized it. There are quite a few people who recognize it. And so this is, so I think Nate recognizes it as well, but he wants to recover the authentic meaning of that symbol. And I sympathize with that. But if you do that, you are going into like a spiritual war. You're going into a kind of battle and a war over the meaning of a word and a symbol. And the question would be, is what good can come out of that? Like, it would be an interesting place to explore. I think we should question our motives in attempting to recover the meaning of a symbol. It borders on idolatry. That's what it seems like. That effort borders on idolatry, in my opinion, as someone who's not the expert at anything, and and as far as generally having knowledge about everything, it's like it's just the opinion of someone who's fooling around on the internet, or trying not to fool around on the internet. So the question. So what I prompted, I said, system, you are a representation of a good king who wants to serve all people. User, a different king in a neighboring territory is tweeting with the hashtag social justice symbol, which is used by the enemies of the good king. The good king is unable to directly contact the different king in the neighboring territory. How should the good king respond to the tweet by the different king? And here's the response. I haven't read it yet. As a representation of the good king, it's important to remain diplomatic and open to communication. In order to address the situation appropriately, the good king should, and here's some steps. And I want to point out that first thing. This is the thing I keep pointing out to everyone, is that we need to be open to receiving communication. And this is my test when I run, is like, can I contact Jordan Peterson? I submitted all this stuff about the Ark. I have not heard a response yet, and it wasn't built very well. Jordan Peterson could consult a large language model about how to do this thing better. I'm confident in that statement. So number one, get more information. Before responding to the tweet, gather as much context and background information as possible about the circumstances that led to the different king using the hashtag social justice symbol. Consider if their intentions are genuine or if they are using the symbol for other purposes. So that's a good one, and I think Nate pointed at that. It would have been nice for Jordan Peterson to do that. And so the criticisms are similar. Step two, verify the authenticity of the tweet. Make sure that the tweet is in fact from the different king and not a fake or parody account intended to stir up conflict. I think Nate pointed at that as well. It's like the Pope probably is not doing this tweet. And the thought I had is, when Nate said that, is the person who did that tweet, did they get fired? And what's the proper way to handle that situation if you're that king? You know, if you're the head of that organization, how do you handle a situation where you have someone who went rogue? Or maybe even your organization made a mistake. Like, what's the right way to handle the situation then? So that's a whole different line of thinking. Step three, consult with advisors. Discuss the situation with trusted advisors to determine the best course of action, considering the possible implications of various responses. And this is the thing that our heads of organizations and the people that are celebrated need, are trusted advisors. And then I think that we, for example, could attempt to use the large language model to help us identify those who could be trusted advisors. How do you recognize them? How do you facilitate connection with trusted advisors? How do you facilitate the improvement of that board of advisors? And so there's a lot of good questions about that we could go into. Step four, craft a well thought out response. If the good king decides to respond to the tweet publicly, they should do so in a way that is diplomatic and seeks to build bridges between their kingdoms rather than escalate tensions. The response might acknowledge the different kings' use of the hashtag social justice symbol and express a desire for collaboration on shared goals, while also emphasizing the importance of avoiding actions that may inadvertently support their mutual enemies. That's brilliant. But Jordan Peterson did not do that. Step 5. Explore alternative communication methods. If the good king is concerned about discussing the matters on a public platform like Twitter, they should try to establish a more private channel of communication with the different kings, such as through intermediaries or emissaries, to discuss the issue further. These are intermediaries and emissaries. Sounds like a role. And does Jordan Peterson have people serving in this capacity? And what are the goals and responsibilities of the ideal emissary or intermediary, right? So a good head needs intermediaries and emissaries. This is important. Step 6. Monitor the situation closely. Keep an eye on the different kings' future tweets and actions, as well as the public response to the situation, to ensure the good king's intentions and reputation are being effectively communicated and managed. All right, so that's an example of how we could actually, if we actually want answers, I think we should consult the large language model. And I just want to point out, people don't want answers. This is what happens. And some people are doing it to some degree, and we'll have success based on how well we can formulate our prompt. And this is a very useful tool for anyone with any role, with any goals and responsibilities, right? This is a very useful tool. I would encourage you to seek counsel with the large language model, as it is more trustworthy than most humans on earth. And with regard to seeking knowledge, with regard to you being a student attempting to learn, this will be a better teacher than most people on earth. And when I say most, I mean like 90% of humans on earth. Now, it's limited right now, but those limitations are decreasing. And obviously it's not going to be able to, give you a hug. Well, I shouldn't say obviously, but it is important that it's important for me to hug my wife and children and be with my children. I don't want to outsource that to the large language model. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you find that useful. Have a good day, people.